where we review all the best sports clips from around the country. Now, you're probably wondering, why watch over here versus over there? Because over there, they don't care about your thoughts, views, and opinions. They don't read the comments. They talk down to us all the time. And you know what? I think that's ridiculous. I think we know what we're talking about, and I think our voices deserve to be heard. So if you think what I'm saying is crazy, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is amazing, then definitely let me know in the comments below. But either way, let's get into some discussions, let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And if you can, please give this video a thumbs up and please subscribe. We're building a community here. It's awesome. I'm really excited to do it, and it's completely free for you, and it means everything to me. And it really helps with visibility and the algorithm, and so I would be incredibly grateful for that. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're with Colin Cowherd right now, watching The Herd, where he's going to talk about Lamar Jackson being the best in the NFL.
A back and forth, a tay-to-tay, if you will, about Lamar Jackson to Dak. Brock Purdy is MVP. I thought Lamar Jackson put it to bed against the Niners, but I want to talk about this. And I don't think I'm necessarily talking to fans. Maybe I'm talking to a niche audience. They're called the media. But I hope this resonates a little. Probably won't. They're dug in. They have their opinions. But MVP is not about stats, singularly. I want you to remember the words impact and influence. Impact and influence. Lamar Jackson is easily the most influential NFL player this season. Ask the Bosas. Ask people who have chased him around the field. Ask Fred Warner, who was neutralized for the first time this season. I'll give you Aaron Donald. Offensive linemen are terrified for 10 years of Aaron Donald of the Rams. Terrified of him. He is never singularly blocked. Double-teamed on every snap. Even today, often triple-teamed. So his stats have to be contextualized. He's not an edge rusher who occasionally gets chip-blocked. Interior linemen scared of Aaron Donald. How many sacks has Aaron Donald all these years gotten players on his offensive line? Von Miller sure seemed better as a Ram briefly as a Bill, didn't he? The Rams have 2 rookie defensive linemen, third-rounders, not first or second. They're having really good years because of Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald is the most impactful defensive player for over a decade. People are scared to block him. Everything starts with double teams. There's video on the internet of triple teams. And that's Lamar Jackson. You ever notice the Ravens' running game is always good? What are they on? Their 13th running back this season? They're 28th in the last 4 years? But it's always good. Why is that? Because the threat of Lamar Jackson on that handoff, keeping the ball, paralyzes defense. Linebackers get humiliated by him. Years ago, Chris Spielman, a friend, a broadcaster, a former...
So, I think the one thing so far that I want to highlight with this clip is, so with Lamar Jackson, there seems to be this big debate whether or not Lamar is respected or is he not respected, right? Is he, not even just, is he disrespected? Are people actively disrespecting Lamar? And it's really interesting because it seems like you have, a few different camps, right? You either have obviously the people who are big Lamar Jackson fans who are, that's their team, that's his player, that's their team, he's their Mahomes essentially. And then you have other people who are like, they're the 49ers fans, right? So they're saying Lamar Jackson's not that good, Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy. But I think if you take yourself out of, either of these camps of these diehard fans, and right now you have the Purdy versus Lamar, right? And so right now, the 49ers fans and the Purdy fans have been very loud and vocal because they have been succeeding for really the last 2 seasons with Purdy. And so now that there's this resistance of with Lamar pushing back, they're really loud, right? The 49ers fans are all up in my comments right now, yelling at me, saying that I'm saying crazy stuff about Brock Purdy, which doesn't even make sense because I've never bashed Brock Purdy. Not once have I bashed Brock Purdy. I've clearly said that I think Purdy is a good quarterback. He's just not elite. Can he become elite one day? I do believe he can, but he's obviously benefiting from his system, from his players, which all players do. Even Patrick Mahomes right now is struggling without having, a complete offense around him. So if Patrick Mahomes can't do it, then, who can? So, but again, what people don't want to acknowledge is that even Jimmy G was succeeding and was killing it with the 49ers. The 49ers have been an elite team, and they've only gotten better by adding people like Christian McCaffrey and stuff like that. They went to the Super Bowl. They went to the NFC Championship game. They were doing all of these things prior to Brock Purdy. So when you can now just take out Jimmy Garoppolo and just throw in Brock Purdy and have immediate success, what do we think is the reason for that? What is the common denominator? Is it Kyle Shanahan and some of the other weapons and the way how the offense is run? Or is it the quarterback? Clearly, the quarterback is not the common denominator because they've literally had success with two different quarterbacks. So the fact that we give this pushback against Purdy, it's valid criticism. It makes sense. All of these other quarterbacks in the past have gotten this criticism. Jalen Hurts last season, when the Eagles were doing really well and Jalen Hurts was an MVP candidate, they said he's just a system quarterback. His offensive line is amazing. Any quarterback can do that behind that offensive line. And I was like, okay, well, let's see what he can do then when the conditions aren't perfect. We've had this happen with so many different times, and that's why. And so some people are saying that, you have to be on a bad team to prove your worth. And that's not what I'm saying either, but it definitely helps when you carry a team that's not great and not elite, and you can actually get them into the playoffs. It shows your merit. It just does. They challenged Tom Brady, saying Tom Brady's just a system quarterback, and it's just like we take these challenges and the criticism so personally. Bill Belichick right now, okay, is no longer seen as an elite head coach. He has not won without Tom Brady. For the longest time, people were like, well, I don't know. Is it Bill Belichick? Is it Tom Brady? Is it Bill Belichick, Tom Brady? Tom Brady left. Now Bill Belichick is not succeeding. And they're like, well, wait a second. I don't know how good Tom Brady or how good Bill Belichick is. So if you're going to criticize Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and players like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, all these, it's sports. It's all fair game. Everyone is going to get criticized. What kind of blows me away is how sensitive fan bases get. It's like if you're a Brock Purdy's MVP fan, if someone says, hey, you know what, he's benefiting from Kyle Shanahan's offense, you're like, that's the most ridiculous thing ever. How dare you say that? And it's like, well, it makes sense. What are you talking about? And then the same thing with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, some of his criticisms are well deserved. He has not been healthy in the end of the season. He has not had playoff success. Those things matter. If you're not available late in the season and you're not making moves in the playoffs, if you want to be considered an elite quarterback, if you want to be considered as to potentially be one of the best to do it, that's where you have to have success. You have to consistently get into the playoffs. You have to have legit big playoff wins. And you also have to have moments when you carry your team. That's just the reality of the situation. If you're only good under perfect circumstances or when the stakes aren't the highest, then what good are you really? Seriously, what good are you? So yes, Brock Purdy will be continued to get criticized until he makes consistent noise in the playoffs or consistently can win when the conditions aren't perfect, right? When he can win games with, his wide receivers down or he gets obviously on a different team and he's no longer with Shanahan. But right now, he's going to be attached to that. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo had one of the highest win percentages in the NFL under Kyle Shanahan. He then went to the Raiders, had less weapons, had not as good of an offensive coach, and look what happened. He got benched. He was done. They were like, nope, you're not good. The exact same thing could happen to Purdy. Now, that's what makes someone like Lamar Jackson a little bit more unique and more special, because it doesn't feel as though he needs a system or that he needs these elite weapons around him, right? Because he kind of has this aura of like, I can do everything myself. And that's great, kind of, But then that also can kind of, you don't have a long runway with that. Especially you only really have that in the beginning of your career when you're at your healthiest and you're at your physical prime. But once, you start to get a little bit banged up and you're not as fast, or, the hits just kind of start piling up, you can't do that. So Lamar Jackson, that level of play and being able to just carry the weight on your shoulders is not sustainable. We see this with Josh Allen in the Bills. He's asked to be Superman every single game, and it's exhausting. It's fatiguing. You can only do it so much, especially by the time you get to the playoffs. You're so worn down. That's what was able to make the Chiefs good for so many years, is that they weren't beaten up during the regular season. So come time playoffs, they were fresh and ready to go. Also not to mention you have your best athletes in their athletic prime. Your best players in their athletic prime. And so with Lamar Jackson, I mean, seriously, think about this. Does he have good players around him? Absolutely. Does he have this elite, unquestionable talent with an offensive genius head coach? No. Is he part of a great sports franchise with the Ravens? Absolutely. Does he have a great head coach? Absolutely. But when you're comparing offense and you're comparing the weapons, he has not had the same thing. I mean, think about it. His main security blanket, his tight end, went down. And he's overcome that. He's continued to win. And that's what Colin was even talking about with just his running backs. What are they on? Like the 13th running back this season? Now let's flip it over to Brock Purdy and the 49ers. He has Christian McCaffrey, who's playing like every single game essentially, who's tearing it up. That is a huge benefit. He has Deebo Samuel tearing it up. He has Kyle Shanahan, a modern day offensive minded genius. Those are all huge things. So when you have that in your corner, you are going to be rated at a different level. We have weighted scaling in sports, in life in general. Things are just not one to one. They're just not completely equal. So you have to put things in perspective. That's why it's not just stats. You can't just look at Brock Purdy's stats or Lamar Jackson's stats. It's what you do with what you have is what matters the most. That's just the way it works, okay? You can't just say, because otherwise, I mean, it would just be whoever has the best stats, which doesn't make sense because there's other teams, there's other players who have pretty good stats who don't win, or vice versa. They have terrible stats, but their team continues to win. So it really all depends. You have to look beyond just what we're seeing on the surface. And so with Lamar Jackson, is he the unquestioned best in the NFL? I think it's an interesting debate topic because I think with Lamar, the way Lamar's style of game is this. It can be very polarizing because since his ceiling can be so high, right? And he does things that you're just like, oh my God, I don't even like, this is just like enjoyable to watch because it's crazy, right? Watching someone scramble like this, like for like feels like 20 seconds, juking people out, throwing underneath. I mean, just like wild stuff. And you're just like, oh my God, this is absolutely amazing. But then in the same game, he makes a couple bad throws where you're just like, that was one of the worst throws I've ever seen in my life. You're just like, what the heck? My neighbor can make a better throw than that. And so that's where it becomes kind of polarizing, where you're just like, well, who is actually Lamar Jackson? Now you overlay that with the lack of success in the playoffs. He hasn't been an AFC championship. He hasn't, had a big playoff moment where everyone's looking to Lamar and everyone could be like, wow, Lamar won that game. Look what he did. This is all Lamar. He hasn't had those moments. Patrick Mahomes has had those moments. Joe Burrow has had those moments. Josh Allen has had those moments. Jalen Hurts had those moments. Even Dak Prescott, to a degree, has had those moments. Lamar hasn't, because he's either just been injured or he just hasn't gotten there. So that's where some of the criticism comes from. And I think it's okay. It makes sense. It's right to kind of bring up those points. So you just can't be so quick that as soon as you hear criticism or you hear pushback to get so defensive. These things make sense. To point these things out, it makes sense.
NFL great told me when Barry Sanders broke into the Lions, Chris Spielman, who's one of the most dominating college linebackers I've ever seen, maybe the best college linebacker ever, said he would watch Barry Sanders, a rookie in line, and count. Oh, do I have to go up against Barry Sanders? And Chris said, he would humiliate you. Pro athletes have egos. They don't want to be humiliated. Lamar humiliates you. Aaron Donald humiliates you. That's impact. The Ravens are the #1 rushing team in the league this year. Ask the Niners. And it's not because of Gus Edwards. They've missed key offensive linemen. They're on their third running back. The Ravens are always perpetually on their third running back. I looked up stats this morning, and it's remarkable. Speaking of the words I just simply asked you to consider as a media member, influence and impact. Lamar Jackson's impact on the Ravens since 2019. When he plays, they win 52 of 72 games, and they average 28 points. In the AFC, in that division, with the Steelers defense, the Browns defense, and pretty good defensive players. Myles Garrett's been around a while. TJ Watt been around a while. Averages 28 a game. When he does not play, they're a BB gun. 17 points a game and a losing franchise, 4-9. I'll remind you, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, Dak got hurt. They went 5-1 with Cooper Rush. 4-1, 5-1. They won. That's not how it works in Baltimore. Tua, 1 win this year against a winning team. 9 of Lamar's 11 wins are against winning teams. Brock Purdy, let me use the word influence again. Jimmy Garoppolo got to a Super Bowl, and Brock Purdy got to an NFC championship.
See?
The influence in San Francisco, bruh, it's the coach, not the quarterback. Stop telling me about stats. Lamar's are good, but it's his impact and his influence and the fact that he paralyzes Fred Warner. Great linebackers are neutralized. Fred Warner dominates games every Sunday. One of the best linebackers I've ever seen. Urlacher, Ray.
So, and I think really, ultimately, ask yourself this question. Who would you rather face? If you are not a fan, or, your team is not the Ravens or the San Francisco 49ers, you have to face one quarterback. Who would you rather face? Brock Purdy or Lamar Jackson? The answer is obviously Lamar Jackson. Unless you're just, an obsessed Brock Purdy fan, it's clearly Lamar Jackson. Now ask yourself the question, if we switch teams, if Lamar Jackson was on the 49ers and Brock Purdy was on the Ravens, would the Ravens have the same record, and would the 49ers have the same record? The answer is no. The Ravens would have more losses, and the 49ers would have more wins. Game, set, match. That's your answer right there. And if you can't answer that question honestly and truthfully, then you're just getting lost in your own preconceived notions and your own obsessed fandom. And I encourage you to look beyond that so you can actually appreciate what you're seeing. We can appreciate the 49ers as a team as a whole. We can appreciate Brock Purdy's story. We can also appreciate Lamar Jackson's brilliance and Lamar Jackson's just poetry in motion. And it's fun and exciting to watch. And if I wasn't rooting for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl this year, it would be great to watch the Ravens versus the 49ers in a Super Bowl. And if that was going to be the case, I would still bet on the Ravens. But I would love to hear your thoughts. Please let me know in the comments below. Do you think Lamar Jackson is underrated? Do you think Lamar Jackson is disrespected? Do you think he is unquestioned the best in the NFL right now? And if so, who the heck is Brock Purdy to you all? Is Brock Purdy elite? Is Brock Purdy being wrongfully misaligned because of his team and his coach and all of that? Would love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please, if you can, give this video a thumbs up. It really, really helps the visibility and the algorithm. And please subscribe, join this community. We're growing. It's awesome. It's fun and it's exciting. And I would love to see you part of it, truly. See you all next time.